so that's you and sound.
Okay, good morning everyone and welcome. Thanks for coming along to How to Become a Smart Home Electrician Part 2. Everyone can hear me. There's no technical issues with internet, etc. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get underway. If everyone could mute the sound on their computer, because that might affect the live demo that Lutron will be providing further on in this seminar today. And it might also be advisable to stop your video link as well with regard bandwidth problems that might occur. So if you could look to do that, that would be great. My name is Bob Kearney. For those of you who weren't here last week, I'm Select's Technical Standards Advisor. I represent Select on a number of technical committees, including JPL 64, which oversees the development of ES 7671. I've been asked by Bemco to introduce this morning's webinar after last week's successful event on how to become a smart homes electrician. Where over 61 members of Select attended. I believe there's quite a good attendance this morning as well for part 2. Last week's talk was by Chris Gamble of Customised, who is an experienced smart home electrician himself. He talked in depth about highlighting the opportunities that exist for electrical contractors in this area of technology. And again, I think Chris is going to be with us today, and hopefully he'll be able to contribute maybe when we get to the question and answer session later. Just a wee bit brief background to this. Last week's seminar went into a bit of detail about the opportunities, but possibly not the technicalities of the Lutron RA2 product, hence today's event. So today's event will feature a live demo from Lutron's Matt Jack in a private home where there's a commission system that he'll take you through. That should take us around about 45 minutes. During this, if there's any questions that you have, we'd appreciate if you could raise them using the chat facility that exists on Zoom. You'll see it, the third icon along in the center of your screen. So if you could raise a question using the chat facility at any time during the presentation, just direct it to everyone so everyone can see what the question is, and then we'll deal with the answer as we get through the presentation. Our own Craig McGowan will again coordinate the question and answer session. Craig, as you know, is a Select member with a lot of experience. He's also the Lanarkshire branch chairman. He's got a lot of experience specifically of this Lutron RA2 product. And the expert panel will also consist of Matt Jack and Ross Pat of Lutron. Ross was here with us last week. And as I mentioned earlier, perhaps Chris might join in as well as the expert panel. On conclusion of the Q&A session, which should be around about 12:30, Cindy from Bemco will conclude the webinar as we did last week by spinning our famous Wheel of Fortune for the prize draw, and the lucky winner will again be receiving a free Lutron RA2 Select starter kit. Now, that's worth around about £550. So good luck to you all on that when it comes to the prize draw. You will obviously have to have attended the webinar to receive that if your name comes out the roulette Wheel of Fortune. And Craig will announce the winner at the end of today's event. So now, without further ado, we'll hand you over to Matt from Lutron. Matt's a customer advisor on the technicalities of the RA2 system, and he'll take you through the live demo. I hope you enjoy this morning's webinar, and as I say, I'll just remind you again, if you have any questions, if you could raise them via the chat facility. Thank you, and now over to Matt.
Thank you very much, Bob. Much appreciated. Thanks for the introduction. It's a pleasure to host you all today. For those of you who don't know me, kind of a little bit overview, I suppose. I run our experience centre in London. And again, for those of you who don't get a chance to come and use that space, as a space where we get to showcase all of the fantastic control products we have, solutions we use to control work and home spaces for both natural and artificial light. Is a tool that is used by much of your community to help them to explain what lighting control can do to a homeowner, particularly in this particular conversation. And as a result, is a tool for you, right? So we offer these tours like this for all of our customers, whether they're in London or outside London, virtual or face-to-face, soon even in these kind of challenging times. So a resource for you. So for today, we're going to focus on RA2 Select. We're going to focus very detailed on that. We're going to give you some tools to help address some of the questions that clients might have. So some of this is distilled down from the journeys that I've done. I've probably done 2,500 tours over the last 3 years of this kind of shape and style. And so I hear quite a lot of kind of pushback on certain things for clients, and hopefully this will help some of that, right? So we're going to give you a little overview on our history. It's always useful to understand where we come from, so feel pedigree for yourself, but also for the client. A little bit about radio communication, because if we're going to remove a wire, we best replace it with some technology which is as good as a wire, and the way we do that's pretty important. We're going to go over the system and its very simple elegance, and make sure that you understand how little a complex system this is and how easy it is to specify. Set one up, actually do a quick demonstration of how easy it is to set one up, and then I'm going to take you on a journey around my house actually, and show you how I use those simple components to create a fantastically high functioning space, also an exciting and dramatic space. And of course, we're going to wrap up at the end. So without further ado, a little bit about us as a company. So we started way back in the mid-50s. Our founder, an engineer, Navy man by birth, he came out of the Navy in the mid-50s with, in one hand, a piece of silicon, and in the other hand, a vision. And that vision was simple and clear in his mind. He wanted to bring some of the drama and the theatre that you saw in cinemas and theatres around the world and in the US. He wanted to bring it into people's homes. He felt that there was drama and we could all benefit from that. He worked and toiled on his kitchen table to create his first product. And in fact, that was what we now know as the Capri dimmer, but in reality was the world's first electronic dimmer. So the birth of dimming explodes on, I like to think it was January 1st, 1961. And in that process of design, two things emerged really importantly for him and for us today, and of course they emanate right the way through us as a business and a family business at that, is that reliability is key, right? As an engineer, it's got to work, right? So that's a kind of base principle, I suppose. But within, it's got to work, it's got to be smooth, it's got to be, it's got to be easy to understand what to do and be able to control it. But for the user, there's also an important element, and that is about ease of use and being elegant and beautifully formed and considered. So you could argue, say, that these two sides of a scale of reliability and design fit for purpose or elegance, right? And those two things exist in everything we do, right? Whether it's a piece of software, a piece of hardware, and so on. The world we control changes over the next 50 some years, 60 years. And that is mostly around the light types of load that we control. We started with an Edison bulb in the early 60s. By the end of the first decade, we've got another one in halogen. By the end of the next decade, fluorescent, and so on and so on. And as we see that LED proliferation towards the end of this slide, you kind of start to see that actually things increase in terms of the amount of zones that we have, right? And so what happens there is that the load in the home has dropped. So we've gone from a 100-watt light bulb inefficiently lighting a single dining space, perhaps in a chandelier or inside a pendant. And by the end of even the first decade, we start to see multiple zones appearing in homes. At the start of that journey, that's of course high net worth individuals. But today, it's very common for us to see perhaps a pendant with some spotlights, or a pendant with some picture lights and perhaps some furniture lighting. And this multi-zone dimming is what starts to proliferate around the world. And suddenly we're presented actually with complexity. So our single zone rotary dimmer, our knob or a slider, is easy to understand what to do. But our founder quickly realized that as we moved into a multi-zone application, it starts to feel a bit cumbersome, actually. It's not really fit for purpose. And so he designed and built a product called Graphic Eye. And Graphic Eye really gives birth to the scene. And that is, of course, one that language is closely affiliated with elegance and excitement and partying and entertaining and so on. And of course, that is part of what it does. But the other half of a scene control is this function and ease of use in a home. So we could think of that as, you know, in two halves. Our elegance and ease of use is dining and party mode, and our functional scenes are things like home or away or good night beside the bed, where they just turn all the lights off with a simple press of one button. Now, hopefully you'll see both those experiences today as we go around, but they're equally as powerful, particularly when we look at something like RA2, because often, RA2, excuse me, the reality is that the end customer will often, this will be their first experience of lighting control, and that functional one is something that really changes the way that, that they experience light. And of course, that is something that's a real easy hook for them to grab onto. About a year later, actually, we started to work with the idea of controlling shades. Now, we're not going to go into shades too much today, but to remind us all that controlling light is a total experience. It's not just artificial, it's also controlling daylight. And within RA2, the customer has that experience to add roller blinds and curtains and all kinds of things to create that total immersive experience of light. About 10 years later, we launched our first product with wireless technology in it, and that is now patented as Clear Connect. We're going to go into a bit of a deep dive on that because it's worth you being tooled up and understood, because people's misunderstanding of wireless is certainly consistent. I mean, that would be my comment with one of the most frequently passed pieces of feedback from the client or specifier isn't wireless, you know, not very good. It doesn't, it falls over all the time. And the understanding that doing it without a wire is possible is pretty important. So all of these things are distilled down clearly into our RA2 product, and hopefully we'll get a good idea of all of that. So let's skip forward. So to help us with radio communication, here's a visual, right? I wouldn't advise you show this to everyone. I do, but I feel quite comfortable in it in as much as it's very complicated. And that is its truth, right? Is that radio frequency communication is not easy. There are many ways to do it, many ways to skin a cat, I suppose. And there are all different styles of licensed and unlicensed frequencies from low through to high for all the different services that people use. And they all occupy and work seamlessly alongside each other. So some examples of that are, you know, if I was using radio, I could listen to the radio while at the same time as I had an analog telly, I still use that, or perhaps I was using analog TV for my satellite. I could still watch the two things and listen to the same things at the same time, right? And they don't affect each other, i.e. there is not one style of radio communication, there are many, and they are all different styles and rules of how we communicate and what we say and how we say it, right? So really important that we think about that first, right? Because it happens around us. We're going to focus in on two portions today. We're going to look at the 868 frequency and the 2.4 frequency. Now, I'm not going to test you on this at the end, so don't need to worry about it too much. But suffice it to say, these two frequencies have distinctly different properties. The 2.4 frequency is defined by the UK government that I'm allowed to talk as often as I like and as loudly as I like, which makes it really great for certain things, right? So if I want to, you know, transmit large blocks of data, like a file or a video, really, really good. And so you often see that antenna technology and that radio frequency communication in phones, laptops, and of course in our Wi-Fi at home. It is also used for a whole bunch of other stuff like mobile, retrofit lamps, you know, with Philips, Zigbee devices, and all kinds of things, as well as our general microwave oven, which broadcasts in that frequency. So I suppose you could say that it is congested, right? The 868 frequency, different set of rules, right? The rules of communication are like this. I'm allowed to talk very infrequently, and when I do talk, I'm not allowed to talk very loudly. So less congested, less applicable actually. It's not really great for a lot of things. But if we think about the application that I'm using this radio frequency communication for, then suddenly it starts to kind of dawn on us, right? So I don't need to talk to my light every 5 seconds. I don't need to tell it what to do all the time. I just need it to come on when I press a button. And so this is very much the right radio frequency communication for the right task. And so we use Clear Connect to replace effectively the switch drop between our switch beside our door and the luminaire in the ceiling. And that is really what it's doing. It's replacing that instant connection with a very reliable, almost instant switch on and off. To help us visualize that, for the clients to get an idea of the different types or these particular two applications, you could think of the 2.4 frequency band as perhaps the M25 or any busy motorway in the UK on a Friday afternoon, in as much as I will arrive there on the way home from work, and sometimes I'll just breeze on home, and it'll be really easy and lovely, and like never a problem. And then every other week I'll go there, and it'll be a complete nightmare, and it'll be very inconsistent. And that existence of inconsistency is where our problem falls down, because when we look at lighting, it is life critical, right? And so we must make sure it works every single time. If we're going to replace something as good as a switch and as reliable as a switch, it best be as reliable as that, right? So we would affiliate ourselves with perhaps a bus lane that runs alongside that motorway that gives us very reliable time of arrival and departure, and that we can control with some tight tolerances. And it's those kind of simple rules that really apply to the way we want to do it. Now, for you guys and girls, I'm sure, RA2 is new, right? For us, the technology that drives that is old, and we'll go through some sites where we apply that. But of course, the other thing is when you're designing this system, it's important to recognise that there are things that are important. So all of this work, and we spent 5-6 years designing it, distills down into 2 simple rules really, and they're the things that really matter to your client. Is if I'm going to remove my cable and I'm going to run it with a battery, how long is it going to last? Well, the answer is 10 years, and sometimes longer than that. It would depend on how much you press a button. And then of course, how far can it communicate? And so we give some range guarantees, right? Some rules of design, and they are 9 meters through built material. And built material is brick wall, concrete, in the commercial application, actually through perforated metal ceiling. So a very kind of good range of distance. And in the open air, it will go 18 meters. And so they are design rules, right? And so we can go through how we communicate with our devices in a minute and use those rules. If we skip forward now to the history, this technology is knocking on 25 years old. It controls some of the most hostile environments in the US and around the globe. In fact, there is probably at least one occupancy sensor in every one of the 54 million square meters of commercial office that we currently run around the globe. It in fact runs the whole of the Empire State Building and has done in a slightly different product set, but that technology is there. It's proven. I've known for the last 6-7 years. It runs and turns the lights off beside the bed in the Marriott in Frankfurt and gives the guests that ease of use that we're talking about, that simple on and off beside the bed. And that was done retrospectively. It was a fantastic story, actually. It allowed them to save a vast sum of money while offering the guest a better experience. And of course, recently, a high density or multi-dwelling unit in London at 150 Bishopsgate, they actually use RA2 Select there in 164 apartments. Many devices, all tightly crammed in, as you can imagine, all working very reliably and very efficiently, but offered a huge savings on installation and speed and commissioning time and all kinds of great stuff that all were really applicable to the client. Now, if we just come away from this for a minute, I stop sharing. Just skip back to video at that point, and now we can see the subset of product, right? So I'm going to just shuffle us to the right there. So when we look at RA2, we have really a pretty simple set of products. So that's scanning from left to right. We've got some bits which are going to slightly out of shot, but if we focus in the first element on this first part, right? So we've got keypads, and they're what we call Pico based. We'll go into what that means in a minute. We've got dimmers, and then we've got a main repeater in this case, but sometimes we use auxiliary repeaters. So let's call that the brain. So 3 components really, or 3 groups of components, different variations within them. And let's explore that for a minute. So when we talk about Pico based, this is what we mean, right? So Pico based looks like this. So, and in fact, that is a Pico, right? So here in our Pico is our distilled clear connect technology, the guarantee range, 9 meters for built material, 18 meters in the open air. Now, in this world, in this application, this product actually talks directly to our dimmer. Now, in this case, I've wired one up so we can have a little play with it later. So when I turn on the lights, I won't do now because it's not programmed, this is talking directly to the dimmer. So that range is more than enough, 9 meters, right? But of course, we can do these in different styles, and we can see that in front of us. This technology can be shaped in what we call zonal, and zonal looks like this. It's maybe an on and off, or an on and off of a raise and lower or dim feature, which would look not dissimilar to something like this. Okay, you can see that raise and lower, that arrow there. We can also take advantage, and just a reminder, when we talk about zonal, we're really talking about one group of lights coming on together, or perhaps two, in a kid's bedroom or in a hallway. And some of the simple control is required, but we're not looking to create ambience. We're not looking to control vast spaces of mixed load types and kinds of stuff. It's really just simple areas, right? We could, of course, have two of those on and off and raise and lowers, one to control each group of lights. So I could have a pendant controlling one, and another one controlling some bedside lights, for example, right? That would be perfectly eloquent. We can go through that again later. As we move out into the more complicated areas of a home, perhaps a living, dining, kitchen space, where, at the minimum, we're going to have 3 zones, and we've probably got 6 or 7 in those areas to create the right kind of ambience. Again, we'll show you that in real world when we go out. We want to use that advantage. We want to take control of that using scenes. Now, scenes in this world come in a number of styles. We come pre-engraved like this. This one's a kind of TV room one with some simple rules, and on and off, and it's a TV and then an entertain drinking button, and how you want to describe it. We have 5 different styles of those for things like beside the front door, beside the bed, in the kitchen, and so forth. Right? And they allow us to use some of the knowledge that we've gleaned over the years to make your life easier to design a system. Because if it's going into a task-based location like a kitchen, they're the things that most people ask for. We haven't made these up. Most people ask for cooking in a dining scene in a kitchen dining space. Most people ask for a relaxing and entertaining space in a relaxing space. And these are built over time. That does not, however, preclude the use of custom engraving. So we can have that kind of beautiful story that we've been using over the last few decades to be able to create that perfect experience, totally customized to the user, on a Pico, here a 4-button one. All right. Now these can be apportioned in different styles of plate. So here you can see single plates and double plates. We do those in black and white plastic. Black plastic there. You also do a triple plate if you needed to, but to be honest with you, if we're moving into triple plate territory, then you're probably starting to ask some questions of, do I need that many Picos? Because in many ways, I would describe the system as being less is more. So we need, it's so easy to change and adjust over time. You don't need thousands of Picos to control the individual zones. If we've got lots of zones in a room, use a scene controller. If you've got a single zone or 2 zones, just a couple of zone Picos maximum. And keep it simple and easy for you to specify. These also come in the bright chrome satin nickel, satin brass, and this fantastic white glass, which you can see here as well, which is a beautiful finish. So all beautifully apportioned, as well as a range of pedestals as well, which you can see over here, which allow us to be able to put the Pico and the control where the client needs it. Now that's probably as good a story as you're going to get as I wander around here, one that I use on a regular basis in my home, whether it's beside the bed or on my dining table. Now to control each group of lights, we have one of these, and these are what we would call an inline dimmer. You can see there are live, neutral, and earth in and out feeds, and that tells a little story of where it would go. So typically, if we're talking about a retrofit application, this would be up in the ceiling ahead of the first fixture in the circuit or in the room, and that way we can interrupt the supply. That's actually a switch. For this, we do a lighting switch at 6 amps. We also do a mains dimmer and a 0 to 10 dimmer. And those are really useful when we want to create ambience. So again, thinking about the type of control the client wants, you can have switch, you don't have to dim everything. I love dimming, but the client doesn't necessarily see that they necessarily want it. So we can do mixed types of control if we want to. Our mains dimmer is exceptional in a number of ways. It is purpose built to control LED, which seems somewhat innocuous because dimming's easy, right, in our eyes. Of course, we all know, I'm sure we've got tales of it being a bit challenging, and that's probably for a couple of reasons. It might be from inrush, where the LED sucks so much power on the first half of the cycle when it's getting going that it trips or overloads the dimmer, perhaps blows the dimmer. With our dimmers, they're rated between 1 watt and 250 watts, and they're rated for the full 250. So if you want to use that, you can. And that is pretty useful because it does allow us to do huge spaces. That's 30, 40, perhaps even more GU10 bulbs, depending on the wattage, obviously. At the other end of the spectrum, that low end, that 1 watt's equally as important. So LED doesn't draw a lot. And so as a result, there are often cases where our traditional rotary dimmer, the one that we invented, the Capri, back in 61, that low end, it won't perform that well, right? So this is what we call leading edge dimming or trailing edge dimming. Our dimmer in this product is trailing, purpose built for LED. That forward phase or leading edge dimming can have a challenge. It can have we call a latch load issue. And so with a 1 watt load, we kind of get ourselves all covered. So we don't need to have any issue there. That's its minimum. Normal dimming perhaps be 25, 30, perhaps even 40 watts. So it can be a challenge as well. But with peace of mind here and design resilience is what we're looking for. So you pick that product, it will dim it really well if it can be dimmed. Probably our other issue. There's 0 to 10, and there's also a mains relay as well. So a 16 amp switch that can turn off a standard 13 amp outlet, right? So that's useful if you wanted to turn off high voltage items or turn on something substantial, maybe a heater or something like that. You can do that, all right? To set the system up, we have one device. We have a hub, right? And this sits at the center. I like to think of it as being at the center of the house. And the reason I do that is because from here, there is a 9-meter radius. I'm going to bring my finger in a bit closer. So imagine that's 9 meters. That is a bubble created around this product of Clear Connect. Now, everything that's inside that bubble can be commissioned and set up. And that is its primary focus. This is there to allow us to see our devices and set them up. It is also networked, so I can use the existing network infrastructure in the home, i.e. our broadband router, to dial into on a third-party device, hence my iPad there, which we'll show you in a bit. It also allows us to talk cloud to cloud and across the internet divide to other devices, and allows integration to become very, very easy. So this is critical, no doubt, in our first setup. If we have large estates that have a bigger range than 9 meters, we can also add auxiliary repeaters. So think of that as being another black box here and here, and I can extend that range. In fact, I can do it 4 times. That allows us to think about a bubble which is 18 meters in diameter, with another bubble next to it of 18 meters, and so on and so on. And so we can extend that range to give us coverage whenever we come across those challenges. Now, I live here in this house. You're going to see it, four stories. I have a main repeater that covers the 4 stories of the main part of the house. Happily, it sits in the basement, goes all the way to the top. It's more than 9 meters for traditional built material, and it works perfectly well. But on one end of the house, it's a little bit awkward. So I added a dimmer on the outside of the house, didn't quite reach. So I added an auxiliary repeater in a little secondary room. Now that can be done almost on the fly because they're not wired. It's just wireless. It's just an amplification of our Clear Connect communication. If I scan to the right, brand new here is this fantastic lamp dimmer, right? So our lamp dimmer is a plug-in, bring that down, 13 amp supply there. So you can see our 13 amp outlet there as well, and then the plug. And of course, what this is allowing us to do is it's allowing us to be able to control existing lamp and lighting solutions, tables lamps, floor lamps, and so on, without running a 5 amp circuit, often forgotten. Also a really interesting way for you to introduce the idea of a kind of smarter home. You know, all you need now to create even like an entry-level cinema would be perhaps a couple of Sonos speakers or a Sonos Beam, a hub from us, a Scene Pico from us, and a lamp dimmer, and that could control all the lamps in that room and create ambience with one button. And we'll show you that again when you can create a lighting experience and an audio experience. Or perhaps even ask those beams and those devices to turn on the TV, change the lighting, and get you ready for a cinema experience. So very, very cost effective and very easy way of entering that kind of space. Now, this is all a fortune to us because within the system, we have an app, right? So I'm going to show the app to you now. So this is my app at home. So this is how we set the system up, but it's also how to get the user of the home, a homeowner, would use the system. The difference between what we call contractor mode and homeowner mode is really how you log onto the system. On the back of the hub, there's a little button that allows us to temporarily connect to that, so that when we're in the homeowner's house, we can set it up and adjust it for them. But of course, as we leave, it disconnects and it doesn't allow us to jump on, thereby de-risking, I suppose, their perception you might be able to turn the lights off. Let's do that actually. Let's set us up. So we can turn all our lights off with just one button there. We can also do all the kind of things you'd expect, right? So here we've got all of the different zones in a home, my fantastic naming and posh lounge and all this kind of great stuff, which really works for me. And of course, that is one of the personalization features within the app. We can make it totally contextual to the way the customer wants to do it, or indeed they can. You don't have to do all these things for them. It can grow with them. That's certainly how I have experienced it. We can also turn on lights, right? So I can raise and lower an individual zone there. You can see that come on. I can turn it off. Within that dimmer, because that's me now addressing the dimmer and the associated fixture that's connected to it. I can also do some other bits. I can, as I said before, I can change or name it differently, change where it resides, change the icon. But I could also use a thing called trim. Now, trim affords us the ability to iron out the imperfections the LED presents us. So some LEDs, say a G10, might come on at 5%, and that'll be it's 1%. It starts to turn on. Now we call that dead travel. It's easier to think about that on a rotary dimmer. So we turn the rotary dimmer through, to 1 o'clock. Let's say it doesn't come on until it gets to sort of 2 o'clock, right? So we can take that bit out and make 2 o'clock now 12 o'clock. And so that is there in the low end. So in some lamps, some of the ones in my house, actually the dimming doesn't really start until about 28, but it's very, very low end. And it's that ease of use and adjustment that means that all my lights come on at the same time, all right? Because there's a little bit of a delay that we're taking out and allowing all the lights to work at the same time. And of course, at the high end, dimming saves money. So I don't run my house at 100%. I run everything at 10% off that. That increases the life of the luminaire, runs it cold, but also gets us to the right light level, right? So we're always overlighting spaces, no doubt that we put in more spots and more light than we often need, and dimming down the maximum output is pretty useful. Come back out. We can adjust the scenes as well, of course. So if we jump in here, you can see the different fixtures. In this case, it's going to just suck away and drag the fixtures that were in my kitchen area. I can adjust those different levels. Now we're going to add a controller and a pico, a dimmer in a minute, and you'll see that. But with a scene controller, you want to be able to adjust those different levels, right? And so that's what we can do here. Press cancel, but I want to change that. As well as that, we can apportion ourselves some ad hoc scenes. So less is more. You heard me say that at the start, right? The buttons beside our door as we enter the room should be the minimum. We often think of that as being 4 to 5 buttons. It's certainly an on and off at the bottom and at the top of the keypad, and maybe a couple of or 3 scenes in the middle of different styles, right? And of course, that means that sometimes there are ambiances that we want to create, perhaps across the whole home or at different times of the year, right? So I've got one there for Christmas. Now I press that. In this case, actually ask Alexa to do that for me. So Alexa will take these ad hoc scenes that are created and share them across those devices. So I can trigger that from Alexa or from Google or from or indeed from Apple. That's one of the useful parts of this product. Very agnostic in terms of integration. But of course, that affords us the ability to create more scenes as we grow into the system. Again, more personalization. For the customer, really important, very empowering that they feel that they own the system, they have control of it. They can learn what they want in their space. You don't have to do the defining for them. Now, for you, that means that they can learn. You don't have to be there holding their hand. Because one of the challenges with smart systems is that you feel like you have to design every element of the system. You have to dot every I, cross every T before you can hand over. Now, we build in some rules to allow that to be a bit easier for you. One of those is that personalization element. We can also do some automation. So each one of these systems has a time clock in it. And that's an astronomic time clock, which means we offset the loss of time that happens each year, which is pretty useful. But it also means I can create fantastically efficient spaces. I can use it to turn on the lights in my mornings. You can see there, Matt's morning, or I can turn on again Christmas lights on and off and this kind of stuff. Or the one that I use on a daily basis is the ability to turn my garden lights on 5 minutes before sunset and turn them off 5 minutes after sunrise, or whatever I want to do. And it's this automation that is actually appealing to a lot of people, but again, it's empowered by them. They do it. They just press add schedule, pick what they want, what day, and so on, and adjust it and create it. If we go to the cog, now we're starting to get into the back of house, where you set the system up, or indeed, they could adjust it. It's also where some of the customization happens on the app. So we can change the backdrop, change the color of the icon, really start to make it feel personalized to them. We can also integrate it with our 3 main partners we talked about, our kind of IoT products of Google, Amazon, and Apple, and therefore their associated voice commands as well. But of course, if we wanted to, and we were interested to integrate it at a higher level, we were not precluded from doing that. So we could use a professional grade control system, perhaps a Savant, a Control 4, another. And that is a portion to us to the advanced, through the integration, and then through this thing called the integration report. Now that gives us a list of all the button commands and all the dimmer commands and devices that allow us to create scenes or trigger events within another ecosystem. So as I say, within a Control 4 or whatever, that is done over IP via their control system to ours. So they're telling us what to do. Delete that, so we don't need that right now. We can also use the location of this phone. So this is got a thing called geofencing logged into it. So the app will give us, or indeed Android as well, because it's not just an iOS app, it's available free of charge on all platforms. And that location, as part of their API with us, we know where you are within certain tolerances. You're about 312 foot of your home. And as a result, we can do things as you leave or you enter that ring around your home. And that's called geofencing. Again, a useful tool to be able to streamline the way a space works. I use that to turn the lights on as I come home. I don't use it to do anything when I leave because I pretty much know I've pressed the button, but I could do. I can adjust that as I see fit. So that's really a kind of a whistle-stop tour through the app. If I stop broadcasting now, we'll go back to the live presentation. I'm going to zoom in a smidge now because we want to be able to see the app and we want to be able to see the dimmer. Now I'm going to do a live demonstration of how easy it is to set one up. Right, so this is another app. It's on my iPad. Same license, i.e. it's free. But now I'm going to try and set up this dimmer over here. And for the purpose of this conversation, let's call that a kitchen chandelier, okay? And that is my light over here simulating that it's connected. I go into COG, I go into add devices. Now we're really into kind of back of house. Now back of house allows us, I'm going to try and get us a square on. There we go. Gives us all the devices that can be added to the system. So we talked about dimmers and picos and different styles of dimming and switching and so on. Those are those two there. There's our standard picos. We've also given audio picos. Now, audio picos allow the API we have with Sonos to talk directly. So I can pause and play, and again, I'll show you that as we go around, and raise a volume and so on, and that becomes very nice and a useful way of controlling our audio. Again, the shading, we talked about that earlier, the ability to be able to add those devices over time. We wouldn't necessarily add that day one on every job, but it certainly can be a nice addition over time. And then, of course, occupancy sensors, often forgotten, but very useful in a residential application for downstairs cloakrooms and laundry rooms. I've got one in my shed, for example, so really kind of nice and easy for us to control them. And then finally, some of the integrations we talked about with soon to have Nest back, although people still haven't given us a date for that release of their API, and of course the Sonos integration, which is a dream of integration, which is just sucked into the RA2 environment, as long as it's on the same network layer. Now, let's add a dimmer. Now, our dimmers are powered, as you can see that's kind of whizzing off on that white cable to the plug socket in this case. Now that's looking for a device. Now, again, you should be able to see that find one. It's now found one device, and that's because our hub, I'm dialing across my wireless network to the hub, and the hub is looking for any device inside that bubble, that 18-meter bubble, to find something that's not commissioned, in this case, a lamp dimmer, or a table dimmer, sorry. Fake lamp dimmer, but the one that's controlling our chandelier. Now they have unique IDs, you can see that, but I don't want to record that and I want to log that somewhere. I just want to make this quick and easy. So what we do is we flash that group of lights so we know where it is. And you can kind of see that pop up, right? So that's it flashing on the right-hand side. And you can see now that I know which it is. I know that it's the island chandelier, and I know that's the one that's connected to it. Now, if we've got large houses with 20, 30 zones of light in it, that's pretty useful, because I don't want to have to get the dimmer down from the ceiling, look at a number, or use some special tool to be able to commission it. I just want to move quickly through this. I've wired it, I know it's working, and I want to move on and get it set up as quickly as possible. So I can press add. Remember, we decided to put it in the kitchen area, so I'm going to put it in the kitchen. I'm also going to put it into our island chandelier. We talked about that. There we go. And that's it, right? So the setup now, I did a little quick dim flash on the side there, and let's come back up. And the fact that the database is now being built a little bit. I could do more. I want to add another device. I want to add a Pico here to turn that light on and off. So I'm going to add another device. I'm going to add a Pico. Now what it says on that really small writing is that I need to press and hold the bottom button for 10 seconds until the LED flashes quickly. The LED is right on the top of the Pico there. You should just about be able to see that flash. And what that has done is it has told our hub its unique ID. So this Pico has one. Let's call that 1A for the purpose of this conversation. It's larger than that, but for this purpose of the conversation, it's 1A. Now the hub is going to decide where it goes and tell it what to do. And of course, what it's actually doing is the hub is actually creating a little database of information that tells the dimmers what to do when a button's pressed. Because remember that the Pico is talking directly to those dimmers. So if I jump out here, I'm going to say I'm done adding devices. right? Now at this point, my iPad on my wireless network connected across the LAN to my hub is told the hub to broadcast out a bunch of information to all of the devices in my home, dimmers, shades, all sorts of different stuff, right? And that is commissioning in inverted commas. Now, I think I would probably call that a setup. In fact, we actually call it setup on the app here. And that takes a little bit of time, there you go, about 10 seconds or so. And it says there's a little bit further to go. But in fact, I know that if I press the button, all the lights will come on. You can see that. But something's not quite right, okay? Because what I've done there is I've turned on all the lights in the kitchen. Now, that's a useful feature we offer and one to be cognizant of, is that when we add a Pico to a room that's already got dimmers in, it will take all of them for you. Now that's really useful if we're doing it for the first time. Because if I add a Sing Pico to a room that's got dimmers in it, like that kitchen, the first Pico in, will preset those scene levels for us, and it will remove some of that ambiguity and again, that challenge you have with the client. But in this case, I don't want that. I just want to be able to control my island chandelier. So I'm going to edit it. I jump into edit, which happens there as we saw in the app before. And now I'm going to just jump to devices. I'm going to say, I don't want that one, or that one. And I'll kind of come back out and I'm going to press save. And I'm going to turn off all the lights so you can see that I'm only controlling one. And then I'll press my button again. And I'll just press that one light. So setting up systems, adjusting them, creating those ambiances that we want either on the kind of nice and relaxing side or on the functional side. Very easy, very intuitive, and no kind of hidden stuff, right? So clients can really get it. Now, let's have a little wander. So I'm going to go out and about now. We're going to have a little wander around my house. So for the purpose of this conversation, let's imagine that I've stepped away. And when I stepped away, I pressed this button here, right? So this is my home and away Pico, obviously home at the top and away at the bottom. When I press my away button, it left one light on, okay? Because that's what I decided to do. That home or away scene can be whatever you like. I could leave the whole hallway on, really up to you or up to the client over time to adjust that. We have also a fantastic feature called Smart Away, which can be triggered by location again, or just pressed on a button on the app, and that will allow the lights to simulate within certain hours of kind of automated occupancy, I suppose. And that's quite useful. Again, when we look at the stories for the client, yes, it's about ambience, but it's also about peace of mind, security, and functional benefits. They are the things that lighting control really offer. Often we only focus on the kind of exciting, sexy stuff, which is great, and it is the fun bit, I suppose. But the functional bits are the bits that keep giving. They're the bits that make our daily experience in our homes more enjoyable, right? So I come home, I press one button, all my house comes on with one light. And in this case, when I say all my lights, I turn on 3 groups of light. There's actually 3 dimmers in my ceiling here because of the way they were wired retrospectively. It was very easy to do, but it was a painful historically. I turned on the light upstairs and I turned on the lights in my lounge, right? So what's called the posh lounge, right? And so that's allowed us to create a pathway. So I could go to bed or I could go and relax in the lounge. In this case, I'm actually going to go downstairs because I've also turned on my downstairs area. And that's where my kitchen, dining, and kind of snug area, or kids' bedrooms, right? Or kids' play areas. So here you can just got to see what we've got. We've got a little bit more groups of lights. So upstairs, very much about zonal. And so we've got some pendants and very functional lighting. Still dimmed because I want them dimmed. It's very useful. In here, we've got under cabinet lighting here and around the room, some spotlights and some decorative table lamps. So we want to use scenes here. We want to make that more functional. So you can see here we've got on and off our cooking and our dining. All right. So very quickly, we're just going to pop to cooking. So you should just about be able to see that the lights come on underneath there. So you can see my underfloor lights. Now, what's in this space, actually, it's less about ambience, just about function. And often, you know, one of the things I think about here is what would I have done if I'd have had no lighting control in my home during this, during the pandemic. I've used this button loads and loads of times, right? This gives us the override of this particular set of pendants. Now, to turn these pendants on, I just need to press that button now, right? And I can put that control on a pedestal where I want it to be. And that's pretty useful. These pendants were historically controlled before our RA2 came in by my fridge. So I'm going to get up and press the button when it was dull in that room. Right? It's a very, very poor experience from a user's point of view. Now I've got reliable and easy control. I've also, you know, potentially improve the way that we perhaps install it. So I don't need to run 3 switch control cables from that location over to the lights over here. I had another 2 switch locations here on that Pico, but 5 or 6 cables running across the ceiling. I don't need to run any of those anymore. The communication here that we use is so reliable that I can remove the cable. And for places like 150 Bishopsgate or large development projects, that's a cost, and that saves my money and speeds up the project. Now, let's have a little look at the space where we've got a bit more light, right? So here we've got some more zones of light, some spotlights, a table with floor lamps. Again, scene control here. So I've got it all on. I'm going to go to entertain and we can see what we do here, right? So in this space, I go into entertain. We're going to use some of our dim to warm technology. It's not ours, that's any dim to warm luminaire. So for those that haven't come across that light dims as it dims, it gets to a warmer color. Now that's pretty useful in spaces where we relax like this, because of course, we're harking back to a halogen world or an incandescent world where the experience was about cozy and warmth and so on. Very nice to do that. Now I can do that even further as we move into a kind of TV mode. Right? As things get easier, I can now bring on my sconces on the wall there. So the different experiences we can create. And of course, what we're doing here is we're changing the way this room is used. It's a kids' playroom at the weekend. It's my relaxing area during the evening, and it's where I play computer games or watch TV or football tonight when it's now back. It also gives me the chance to have a little bit of a cinema room. So here I've got a little remote control that is now talking to a bunch of stuff, but it's also talking to my lights, right? So if I jump into my lights here, you can see it's set to dim. I can just press one button and instantly all the lights change. And it's that experience of seamless integration that I think is most acute with Lutron. You know, I'm integrating something that's entirely not mine. In this case, I'm actually pressing it. It's talking to another hub in the cupboard, talking across my wireless network, back to my dimmers and so on. It all happened almost instantly, and it happens every single time. It's not a kind of half in, half out experience. Now, as we travel up to bed and think about that for a minute, we've turned on all the lights down here. It's comfortable and secure, and that's great. We've actually turned on lots of switches, because that would be, you know, in a modern normal application would be lots of things I need to turn off. You know, there was probably 10 to 12 switches downstairs. There's 4 in this lounge in here. There used to be 3 switches here, literally 1 for each pendant. And it's very complicated. So quite close to 20 groups of light, or 20 switches I need to turn off before I go to bed. Pretty painful, really. So I don't really want to do that. I'll just go to bed and deal with it later, right? And that's, again, something on a functional side that Lutron affords us. As we go to bed, we'll see some more ambience. So here. So this is my bedroom. Here we don't talk about tasks. Obviously, we talk more about time of day, and it's a useful place to do a custom Pico. So I'm going to take us into sunset. Just flip us. No, I'll stay on portrait. If I go to sunset, you can see us take advantage of some of the spotlights, and again, also using our lamp dimmers to control our bedside lights. 1 for each side in this case, because of course in a master suite, we don't really want to turn off both lights in one location. Of course, that will cause some problems when somebody else is reading a book. We put some indirect light on through the pendant there to make it feel more cozy and more exciting. You know, all these things are smart, but they're creating more exciting experiences. Of course, as we get into nighttime, we can make it even more cozy. And of course, as we just nod off, we just apportion that one button, that great button that says good night. In this case, I can turn off the table lamp as well and leave my wife to read hers. Now, as we wake up in the morning, as I said before, I don't always want to have a button to do everything. Sometimes we learn how to use the system in a slightly different way. So in this case, I've got a Sonos. We just see the faint glow there. With Sonos 1 with an Alexa built in. So Alexa, turn on good morning.
Okay.
And what that's done is turned on my house to the level that I want it for in the morning. Of course, what dimming offers us is the ability to light the space for the right task. So in the morning, I don't want it to be really bright. I want it to be very low and very cozy. And certainly when I'm in the bedroom or in the bathroom, I don't want to be harshly woken up by that bright, stark light in the morning. As we travel down to the kitchen again, I'm now, I can now get it brighter. So the hallway's not 100%, but perhaps 80%. Again, as we get more and more woken up as we go down, we might start thinking about what we might have for breakfast, a cup of tea, or even if we want to listen to the radio. And so through that integration with Sonos we talked about, I've actually triggered a radio station from their favourites list to be turned on. You should be able to hear that. It's very dramatic. There you go. So that gets triggered as part of the good morning scene. But I'm also given the ability to raise and lower or even pause through my Sonos, right? So I can do that on the Sonos itself or from the app. Often a challenge for customers to use just an app. You need the physical interface to really help them. So I can press a button, probably just about work out that's paused. I can raise and lower it. Pause again, if I want to pick up the phone or do something, indeed, turn it down, leave it on. So again, offering intuitive, easy control of both lighting, in this case, actually a little bit of audio, across a home from both the fun, but also from an exciting, dynamic, fun experiences. So that is a kind of brief synopsis of how we use R2 here in my home. I suppose at this point, we open it up to the floor for Q&A.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much, Matt. That was fantastic. It was, got to say, it was really, it was a superb, just showing everything that you can do with that. So thank you very much for that.
It's a pleasure.
As I said last week, I've been using RA2 Select for just over a year, and as I say, when everybody sees that there, you just, as another thing I say is it's a game changer. So you can see that, you can see everything it's doing, working with the Sonos and all the different things you can do with it. So I'll have a wee look and see if we've got any questions coming in.
Yeah, I think what I like about it, Craig, is it's made up of a set of very small and simply and easily understood groups of product. Yeah, there's options within those where you can customize them, but if you forget about that, I need a Pico, a dimmer, and a hub, and a select, X amount of dimmers, X amount of Picos, and one hub, and that's you done, right? So easy for everyone to understand what to do and how to design it and to quote it and so on and consume it. But for the client, it doesn't look complicated, right? So it's a nice, easy thing to understand. But yeah, sorry, was there any questions?
We've got the first question from Grant. If you have a mains power cut, when the power comes back on, do the dimmers resume in the on-off position they were in before the power cut?
That's great. Yeah, so the answer is yes. If you want me to answer, I don't know if you want me to do it, Russ, or you want to do it, it's up to you.
Well, no, you can go for a minute, it's fine.
Oh, mate. So the dimmers have got what would be described as a kind of a flash memory. So think of it as being a USB within them. They have an indefinite period of time, they'll remember what to do. As part of that, they will come back in the state they were previously in.
There's just a question from Kevin. He's saying, are Select going to be running any courses on RA2 Select so they can learn more? I think that's something we're looking at. Is that right, Bob?
Yeah, I think if there was a demand, Craig, we would certainly run another event similar to today, or possibly an extended morning session where we could, given we would have to have our offices reopened again and access to the training centre to accommodate that. That's something that we would certainly be interested in doing if there's a member demand for it.
I think it'd be good to actually get the hands-on experience using it. Once you actually see it as well, how easy it is.
Yeah, I'm sure something could be arranged between ourselves, Bemco and Lutron to facilitate that. As I say, once we establish where we are, as we start getting back to some sort of normality in hopefully the very near future.
I was just looking at something myself here. It's just when you were saying, Matt, about the cabling and not running in any wiring, obviously for your two ways. And I was thinking of one of the projects we'd done, and it was a big house, and so there was a big grand entrance. So we had like a main chandelier with downlighters, first floor, ground floor, wall lights, low level lighting. Yeah. And I was actually just looking at it there was something like 10 different ways you could access this area. So if you imagine the two-way intermediate switching, and that would have been
insane.
Yeah. So we basically we just put the Picos obviously where we needed them, no cabling, and then you can actually program every Pico to do a different thing, you know. So as you say, at the top of the stairs, you just hit one button and then put everything off. You know, that's the thing, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the learning that I've got, I suppose, you know, when I say things like less is more, is that, you know, where you put a switch today or where you'd put one is probably where a Pico should go. But sometimes we put more there in our mind than we actually need. And so using scenes like a home and away, I press that button when I come in. I almost don't press another button unless I'm doing something out of the norm, if that makes sense. It allows me to light my space for the every day, and then as it changes through the night, I go into different scenes and so on. So you actually end up using stuff less than you would do definitely if you manually or traditionally ran it. But even over time, it can become a more simplistic experience.
Just another question
about other systems.
For retrofit, is there a wall socket that can replace, say, a 5-amp socket for a table lamp to save the extension?
Yeah. So the I don't know if you saw that earlier, but we've got a plug-in 13-amp lamp dimmer.
If I could, what we did in that instance was obviously we had the 5-amp sockets in one of the projects we done. The big, and it was the big kind of, was the posh lounges, you say, Matt?
Yeah, that's right, the posh lounge. Yeah.
We had 5-amp sockets in that, but we actually just had the dimmer module in our enclosure in our main hub. So we just used a 5-amp socket. Basically, that's how we done it. If you don't want to see the lamp.
Yeah, I've got all sorts going on here, Craig. So I've got lamp dimmers plugged into existing sockets. I've got dimmers that I've popped into partition walls where there was a gap behind it, and so I've interrupted the supply to that 5-amp. Now I do my Christmas lights like that with a switch. So one of the beautiful parts about this is that there are some things we recommend because we think that's the right place for it to go. It's the easiest solution, but creativity is one of the beauty things you bring to the table, right? You bring creative how you address these homes, how you light them and control them, you wire them. You know, I've seen a different job, a different implementation every single time, and none of them are wrong. They are what the house presents you with. What's there, particularly on a retrofit, you have to kind of work around the way that house is. My colleague Christina, who I work with at the centre, all of hers are in the cupboard under her stairs because that's where it was easiest to interrupt the supply. Right? Yeah. She was rewiring, so she did it that way. I've got no problem with it. That works.
I'm big on that one, you know.
Yeah.
If we're doing a new install, I'm pretty much running everything back to like the area to our main hub and having all the dimmer modules together, you know, rather than the. But I think it's where it comes into its own. Is obviously if you're retrofitting, it's to pop a light down or put it behind the light. You know? I've just got another question for you, Matt, and it's quite a good question actually. How does your home cope with the smart tech?
Say that again. Sorry, Craig, you broke up a bit.
How do visitors to your home cope with the smart tech when they come in? And
yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
So that's the art, right? So becoming a smart electrician or an electrician who does smart technologies is understanding your customer, becoming a good salesman, a good listener, and making sure you put the appropriate amount of tech into these spaces. Now, I've been doing this a while in one form or another, less on lighting, but more on the smart tech and other works of life. And it is about being a bit delicate with that. So how do my people help cope with it? Pretty well on the main. My mum loves it, for example. So she comes home with my daughter on daily, actually, nearly every day anyway. And so she press one's light on with the front door button. That's all she does when she comes in. All the lights come on, she leaves, and that's it. So for her, I took away turning on probably on average, I suppose, about 10 switches, which, you know, for an elderly lady going down the stairs in the dark would have been a bit awkward in the winter. So she feels a lot of comfort from it, and it's easy for her. I think there is always a journey. My wife's still going on that. She gets how it works. She loves it. But she's learning that actually you can change your stuff infinitely. That personalization thing is really powerful. And, you know, I don't want that light to come on. Okay, I can change it for you. But she doesn't, you know, not everyone understands that editing is infinitely possible. So make sure they feel comfort in that. As a general comment, keeping it simple is the art, right? So just to try and not get too complicated, use the complexity in the lighting scheme to create the excitement and the fun, not in the controls. And that seems a bit weird, but particularly on the keypad. Keep it simple.
Yeah. I thought when you just like, it brings it all back. See when you're like, actually you're adding the components and the dimmer modules, and that is for me I quite like the tech, and that's the fun part, is actually getting up and running. That first time, it was just an amazing experience, So
Yeah, no, agreed.
yeah, I've got just another question from Dylan.
Yeah, of course.
How does Ari to connect to other systems such as ring security and heating systems?
So there are currently a subset of products we work with. So directly into the app, you have thermostatic control with Honeywell, the Lyric, and then also Sonos directly into the app is probably doing it a bit of a disservice. We can control the Sonos environment from buttons and scenes and so on. I can't search their app within ours, but I can trigger events. Fingers crossed, Google get their act together and they give us access to the API again soon, and that will allow us the ability to control heating and cooling from within our environment again, the same as we do with Lyric. And that would give us literally beside the lamp that you saw earlier on the app, there's a little 21 or 22 that appears that I can raise and lower that single zone heating and cooling. That was an ever expanding, architecture for us. We're looking at new thermostatic controllers and new cloud services that we can integrate with inside our app, but we need to vet them, and it takes a little bit of time. As we move up to the next level of integration, we talk about integration with things like Apple, Google, and Amazon. Of course, into their ecosystems, I can talk and they can talk to me, but of course that allows us to join to all the things they can join to. So any HomeKit compliant product can suddenly fall inside a more connected home. So it depends a little bit on how we're thinking about that. Does it have to be in our app, or can it be part of a larger experience, a single app experience like a HomeKit or an Alexa or whatever? Right? And that's part of taking that client on the journey. And again, I would urge all of you to do those in little steps for the client. Safe in the knowledge that RA2 will be agnostically integrated with any of them, including some of the more expensive whole home, AV and everything kind of control systems that we talked about, Control 4 and so on, if they want to go that way. And what I can say is, I'm not wishing to dominate this, but my journey has been steps like that. So I got into lighting, loved it, that was easy. Then moved into the AV side and moved from my Logitech to a Savant remote control because it worked better with the system and it allowed more flexibility. I got a door access and so on. And so all these things go in phases. We don't have integration with Ring today. It doesn't even integrate with HomeKit and a direct integration other than within the Alexa interface. So it'll be part of this,
Matt, on that one, I was actually looking yesterday. So I use a website, IF So it's one that's used for linking loads of different systems together. So Lutron with Ring, for example, or you've even got BMW cars that are sitting on IF So it's IF stands for if this, then that. So it's pretty much any tangible data that you can pull from a system or any information that's out there on the internet. You can go and see if the weather's hot, you can have an action happen in your house, whether that's lighting or putting sprinklers on or something like that. So Ring actually have one that's already set up so that if you press the doorbell, you can initiate a lighting scene on Lutron. So a few things for that would be brilliant. For me, I've got young kids. So if a doorbell goes and it wakes them up, it's bedlam. So if you can initiate a lighting scene rather than having a loud noise happen, then that's brilliant for me. That's absolutely golden. So there's real good things like that. I actually had a customer that used this completely different, and it wasn't even lighting. He had a series of ponds, and he had quite a sizable pump, an 800-watt pump, to get a header to get back up to the original pond. And he also had a wind turbine. So this guy sounded like he's got a bit of money, but it shows you that there's aspects here. So he worked out that it was only generating enough electricity to run his pump if the wind speed was above 7 miles an hour. So on IF he goes out, he wrote a condition in there, if the weather report is showing wind speeds greater than 7 miles an hour, run the pump. If it's less than 7 miles an hour, don't run the pump. And that pump was controlled by a Lutron inline relay. Really quite a complex scenario, but real simple way of breaking it down, and it works a treat.
That's a fantastic example. And again, with the clients, their journey will be over time, right? So they start with something simple and they end like Ross is describing. Perhaps they start there, but more often, certainly with the initial interface, it's lighting that was the one they're interested in because they think they can do it better, or they want control of it from out of their home, or any number of different reasons. And so they start there and they want a journey over time. And it's that fantastic story that we offer, this agnostic integration, this power of all these different solutions we can work with, that I think really is something to shout about with a client, so they can grow to there if they want to. They don't have to, but it's there knowing if they ever wanted to.
I think another just thing I was going to talk about was the scheduling as well, which is another really good thing. I know you were inside the house, but we've used it also on external lighting as well. So so that's another thing.
100%. I do my garden lights every night. You think about how hard that was. I didn't do it because it was just too painful.
You think about it as well, and back in the day as well, when it was you had the segment time clocks or the electronic. You've got it up the loft, or you're just pulling out your phone and then just changing your times on that, if you need to.
Yeah, totally right.
So it's another good point with the scheduling,
Yeah, great. The other one that I can see a wee boom happening is home offices or garden offices that are happening. That trying to get cables back and forward for switching lights. Imagine being able in your kitchen, being able to switch lights off in the garden or switch that home office off without having to go back and forward. It's
massive.
Another wee question from Dylan again. Is the RA2 Select expandable? Also, I believe it connects up to 100 devices. What is the next?
Yeah, great question. One I didn't answer particularly well, so apologies for that. 100 device total. There are allocated 5 for the auxiliary and the main repeater. So you've really got 95 to play with. And to be clear, a device is a pico, a dimmer, a shade, an aux sensor. You get the picture, right? So sounds like not a lot when you think about, complex homes, and it will run out on a really large homes relatively quickly. But I think from my experience has been for a modern family home, 4 bedroom, perhaps even 5 bedrooms, around about 3,000 square foot, that isn't particularly complicated, or is perhaps complicated in some rooms, but in others not. In terms of complexity, I mean lots of zones of light or lots of picos, then it will be more than adequate. I think as we move out into spaces that are larger than that, of which there are many, or have more lighting zones and more complexity, then more integration paths, garage doors, all kinds of stuff that perhaps Homeworks, RA2 doesn't offer, then we move into other systems. But for a good block of people, RA2 is a fantastic entry point into lighting control and smart home.
Going back to your Ross, your ranges on the RF. The biggest one we done. I mean, it's one of the biggest traditional houses you'll see, 4-story. And I must admit myself, I was sceptical, and it just worked seamlessly. We've got basically we've got the main gateway, and then we've got 2 repeaters, and there's never any trouble with it. So it's anybody thinking, it's maybe not going to work in this situation, it
really does.
I mean, that was the harshest of environments. I say a big traditional house, it was brick everywhere.
Yeah.
Double brick.
I mean, look, just to kind of remember how the system works, right? The command doesn't go pico to main repeater back to dimmer. It goes pico to dimmer. So it only needs to be programmed that first time. And of course, most picos are pretty close to their dimmer counterpart, right? So, they're often just in the room together. We can jump through the hub if we need to, but most commonly it works like that. And of course, that makes it designed resiliently. As well as that, we're throttling that spec I've given you, 9 meters through built material, 18 meters in the open air, is our rule. It's not how far it goes. My personal record is 88 meters at the Excel with 1,000 people in, or 10,000 people in the room.
I was thinking that when you said that with the 9 and 18, I'm going, I must have
further than that.
Been a lot further. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it will. And as you get used to this product, you'll work out your best practice, and you'll answer your own question. I mean, now, when I started, speccing this was challenging for homeowners, or giving them the kind of indicative list price or something like that. It was a challenge. I can do that in seconds now. I can look at a building and understand, actually looking at the way that's mostly open plan. All right, it's bigger than 9 meters, but it's mostly open. So actually going through one wall and then it's open from there. So I feel comfortable that'll make it, and so on. And you start to get a feel for it partly because adding a hub or a repeater, or augmenting the system is all done software. So it's just another thing, another device, and so on. And we can, to a certain degree, as long as we set expectation with the client, we can do some of this as we get into it, because the space will tell us how it needs to be worked to a degree.
Another just question from Paul. He says, I've had issues dimming LEDs in the past. Join the club.
Yeah.
Do you try and have a recommended products list, please?
Yeah.
I think you've got your Ross. I've obviously asked you for that before. You've got your sheet with your data sheet.
Yeah, so I mean, I was very kind to you in the past. So we do have a bit on the website that you can go on. So the Centre of Excellence, it's pretty much just lutron.com/LED tool. If you type that in, it'll pull up a wee search engine, and you can search by the type of lamp, etc. The reason I was saying I was very nice to you in the past was I went through and did all that work and just sent it on to you. So you had a cherry pick list of GU10s that you could go to, for example. But yeah, that's on there 24/7. And by all means, if somebody wants to contact me and say what lamps are working today, not a problem. I'll issue that to you. And yeah, we'll have success dimming LEDs together rather than pulling hair out when I've clearly got no hair left. So yeah.
I think to add to that, Ross, I think, how I put this, that they are our benchmarks for perfect dimming, right? They're very high. That's what I would say. I'll put all sorts of lamps in my house, just as I go around, I'll buy something from somewhere, and you'd be surprised how good some of this stuff works. There are obviously some anomalies, and it just doesn't work at all, or it's very, very poor. It'll pop on and then dim, or it will dim very smoothly as it goes off, but it won't work very well when it's going on. But in the main, everything I've ever plugged into RA2, with one exception in my house, I've probably got 20 different vendors in here, if not more, all dims really well. And that's testament to the dimmer itself, but also to the evolution of mains dimming LED. It's not as complicated. So it's better understood how to do that properly now than it was perhaps 5 or 10 years ago. And as a result, this stuff does work better. But if you've got a large project, as I said, you reach out to Ross, we look at the Centre of Excellence, see what's on there. We've tested that. That's solid. It's going to work exactly as we described it. So
I think I've had, getting back to the issues with the dimming, I actually had one not that long ago, and it was a Collingwood fitting. But I think the fitting has been a while, and it was a Schneider dimmer module. So they actually, believe it or not, the Schneider rep was it, and then the Collingwood rep was it. So the Schneider, you can imagine, blamed Collingwood, and Collingwood was blaming 100%. Collingwood's actually RA2 Select dimmer module dimmed them. Yeah.
That'll be a forward phase Schneider dimmer, I guarantee it, or just a poor quality dimmer. So the Collingwood stuff is on the Centre of Excellence. We're testing a lot of that. It's good stuff.
The RA2 Select dimmer dimmed them. The Schneider was basically what was happening was they were staying on for about 5 minutes and then switching off.
Oh, really?
The Lutron, nobody could explain it, Schneider nor Collingwood. I think it was the Collingwood's technology had moved on from when these fittings were supplied originally. So, but as I said, the RA2 Select dimmer worked. It dimmed it.
Good story.
The other thing I want to kind of add in as well, we've talked very much residential on all of this, and it's a great residential product. But you can actually if you start opening up your mind, you can start looking at, can this be used commercially? So we've done quite a few bars and restaurants with the kit as well. So everything from Cameron House over in Glasgow to the Carrick, Balmoral Hotel in Edinburgh, the Malmaison Hotel in Edinburgh with this system, front of house restaurants. It's a brilliant system for doing that.
Yeah, we done it. We used it in the restaurant. Basically, it's not going through the gateway. It's just the Pico with the raise and lower and a favourite, and that's what they wanted. And they just said it works. I've got basically 2 of them in the bar. They're working at that. So as Ross says last week, it's not necessarily have to go through the gateway. You can use it just as the 2 components, or so. And I've got another question from Stuart. Any other option that we should look at, if not already, as people with physical impairments?
So sure, on that one, I've actually done quite a few now. So obviously, disabilities range depending on what person you're dealing with. We did one down in the Borders in Renton. Not Renton, it was down in the Border, sorry. It was a woman, and she had the use of her arms up, so she could use a tablet, or she could use a phone, or she could use a Pico. But likewise, because we've got voice control now as well, essentially if you can speak, then you've got the ability to control your lights. The woman down the Borders actually used us for electric window treatment, so electric shades. So it gave her the ability to open her own shades and put her own shades down when she wanted from either her phone or talking to Alexa. It's brilliant. I love these projects because it gives people freedom back, and we deal with a lot of high net worth individuals on the higher end systems, and that's great. They're wanting it for the flashy part of the world to a degree, whereas once you get down to physical impairments, that it gives you a bit more warm feeling when you're able to help someone, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah. I see what you were just saying there, Ross, about the residential. We're going to be looking at another one. We've got a church project coming up, and they want to be able to switch from the AV desk, which sits right in the middle of the church. So the plan is just to stick a couple of Picos on there, and away you go. So again, how would we do that if we were just conventional wiring? You know,
yeah. So we've done a few churches now, and I didn't realise how much of an AV type system they would have in there, and they're obviously switching screens, switching audio quite a lot, and from that they want to change the lights. We've actually given the priest or the minister, depending on what you attend, the ability to have a Pico as well. So they can actually, if they are speaking about a certain thing, they can change the lights themselves, or they can rely on the AV guy. Obviously, on these traditional big sandstone builds, for you to run cables, you'd be running probably pyro. You'd be trying to dig into the mortar, then remortar in. It avoids all of that. I actually did a castle, which was a residence up near Aberdeen, and they had a spiral staircase. And on every spiral staircase, normally you've got an entrance every kind of half landing. And they used the Picos as switches because previously all they had was a switch at the bottom of the stairs and nothing else. So now they've got a switch at every entry point as they come onto that stairs without the need to obviously raggle up the mortar.
One of the questions I was going to ask Craig and maybe Ross was the capacity of the terminals on the dimmers and the light of the 5-amp sockets. How many cables did it take if you were replacing it on to say a system where there's a loop in?
Just into the dimmer module yourself, you'll get a 1.5 in and a 1.5 out in the one terminal.
Yeah.
So the actual terminal size on it's 2.5, but you're going to struggle to get sort of 2 1.5s in, etc. If most people that I see just do a chalk block or a junction and then take a lead into the unit and back again.
When we're doing ours with obviously we're putting all the dimmer modules in a enclosure. So I'm just got a terminal at the bottom basically, you know, and then just taking one live up, one neutral up, one live up, and splitting it there up into each one. So obviously we're doing the retro, but you can also, as Liz says, just maybe do your joint and take a flex into it.
Do you always need a neutral?
Yeah, the neutral, you need a neutral to work the module basically, but you don't need to take the neutral half out it. You know, you don't particularly need to do that. You just a switch live.
So Bob, just on that, the neutral is very critical for getting good LED dimming. So typically, if you get an in-wall dimmer, you don't have a neutral connection on that dimmer that's there, and that's where you start getting all these issues. We try to dim LEDs, whether it's flashing or the pop on or strobing when you turn it down low. It's generally because you need the neutral as a reference point to start your dimming. Don't want to get too technical on it, but the neutral is very critical. That's why we've allowed for the neutral on the actual dimmer.
It's why it goes in the ceiling as well, because it's the most likely place for it to be in the UK.
Yeah. Right, any photos of the installs you're describing, Craig? I've not actually got any. Is Ross, have you? Is there any?
I have. It's not. It's on my phone. But if Grant drops me a quick email, I'll put my email address in just now. If he drops me a quick email, I'll send him my photo back. Do that to everybody. All right. So
Any questions, anybody?
I think it's been a good session. I think it's probably time if we do. Everybody's going to be sitting on the edge to see if they won a starter kit or not. The one thing I would like to just quickly add just before we go on to that, Bemco's actually, if you go onto their website or you contact Bemco direct, they're running quite a fantastic price for the starter kit. So if you are interested in this stuff, by all means give me a call, chat to me. Bemco are there, willing to help. It's been fantastic for us at getting awareness out of this system. It's been really, really appreciated.
Good. Again, I'll send some photos for our installs on to Ross. I'll do that today, and then you can have a look at that as well. You know.
Again, I think there was interest shown about further training. Craig, perhaps a good idea would be if any of the members are interested in progressing further training, maybe if they drop Jenny Cryans an email as a follow-up to this second part of the seminar, and then we can gauge the amount of member interest and, as I say, coordinate things between Bemco and Lucron to maybe organise something in the, hopefully, as I say, the near future.
Okay. Will we do the prize draw now, Sini, for the starter kit? Is that okay?
I can't see my name on this list.
I'm not on there, Ross. What's going on?
Oh, there's a Ross in there anyway. That'll do.
Yeah. That's a start.
You, Ross,
Win by association.
you've won a starter kit. So am I right in saying he'll get an email? Is that right, Ross, for claim his prize?
Yeah, so Julian from Bemco will be in touch, and he will make sure that Neil has got his. I was just having a quick flick through to see if he was on the actual webinar to see if we could get him up to say yeah or nay, I don't want it. But anyway, no, it's there. That's good, excellent.
All right, so just hand back to Bob then. So thanks everybody for today.
Yeah,
Thank you very
I'd just like to echo that to everybody. Thanks again to everybody for attending this morning's event. I hope you found it of interest and of use as a follow-up to last week's event. I think there is a significant interest in this technology going forward. I'd like to thank in particular Bemco and Julian Barr for organising the seminars over the last couple of weeks. Obviously the experts, Craig, Matt and Ross for today's input. As I say, hopefully the Q&As have been of benefit to everybody. If further info is required, again, as I say, contact Bemco.
A starter kit for like smart lighting in your home.
Yeah. There's your local branches in Edinburgh and Glasgow. And as I say, that really concludes today's seminar. So stay safe, and we'll now hear from you in due course. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Cheers, Bob.
Well done, Neil. Congratulations.
I'll just unmute him so he can speak. Neil, how are we doing? Grand prize.
Good, thanks. That's great. Thank you.
Not a problem. I hope you've got somewhere to put it.
Yeah.
A house or restaurant or something.
Yeah, well, I'll probably put it in my own house. I've not really got much smart stuff, so it'll be a good learning curve to find out how to use it.
Excellent. Where are you based from yourself?
I'm in Kirkcaldy.
All right. Not a million miles away, so I'm over sort of Linlithgow, so
Right.
you're only 30, 40 minutes away.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Excellent.
How are you, just while you're on, Neil, and before you go, how are we handling the handover of the prize? There might be a bit of scope for a photo opportunity at some stage for handing it over. So I'm thinking for Cable Talk magazine, our magazine, and possibly, I don't know, Bemco's own use.
Yeah, definitely.
So
well, we'll sort of coordinate that, Bob, with Jenny.
yeah,
And we'll be in touch with Neil separately with the details. But yeah, if that's okay, we'd like to do something in Cable Talk as a sort of a follow-up feature, and do all that we can to help you either play with, set it up at home, get your feedback on it. Ideally, start to find a project that we can sort of follow your experience, so that we can share that with others. So to really demonstrate how easy it is, and as a transition, as a stepping stone, it's not something that others should fear. Really, is what we would like to try and create with your help, Neil. So we'll be in touch with you if that's all right.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Great. Good stuff.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Well done, guys. Thank you very much. I thought that worked really well.
Yep.
Yeah, that was excellent. Matt, are you still on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.